Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about time management tips for test takers of the medical billing and coding exams. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Okay, you are going to be taking your exam and you're thinking, how can I possibly get through all of these questions? And is it possible to get through all of them? Yes, it is, because many of us do. And many of us get through these exams reading all the questions and going over all the material. Yes, it is possible. It is possible to get through these exams without having to guess, okay? But it really is all on you and how you're managing your time. I did get asked, what are some tips? What are the key words to look for? Guys, all of these exams are different. If you are sitting for an exam with AHIMA, the American Health Information Management Association, the CCS, the CCA, or the CCSP, all of these exams are all different. They are never the same. No two exams are the same. With AAPC, again, I have never sat for an AAPC exam, but the way that they have their test, they have a new format for their test. So again, these questions are going to be different, and that I don't know anything about AAPC and how they structure their test, but I do know that their format is different. And there is no set list of words to look for when it comes to what are the key words to look for. Sometimes I notice when people take those shortcuts, or they're trying to take the shortcuts just so they can pass the exam. Guys, if you're taking a proficiency exam, this means that you've become proficient in that material. If you are looking for the shortcuts just to pass the exam, what good is it going to be for you to have this credential if you don't know what you're doing with it? So before you think about, what are the shortcuts? How can I learn just enough just to pass? Really consider what you're doing. Okay? So when you are taking these exams, I do recommend beforehand, when you are in your study mode before you take your certification exam, that you have been running through practice drills and you've been timing yourself. You have to be able to time yourself. And how do you get faster with the book? It is simply by going through the book and looking at each and every single page. Take a couple of days, take a few days to literally sit down and physically open every single page of your books that you have to use for your exams. Now, the reason that I recommend this is because there's a lot of material in these books. Now, yes, this is an open book exam. The CCA, the CCS, CCSP, or the CPC, they are all open book exams. So we have our books with us. This means that you don't have to clutter up your book with all this writing. You do not have to clutter up your book with all these tabs, okay? Tabs get in the way, folks, and I will always campaign for that. They get in the way. If you're highlighting and writing and all this good stuff, guys, it's going to make a book look chaotic when you go in for that exam. And I will always say that too. Because some people say, well, I have to do this. I have to underline, I have to write, and I have to tab the heck out of all my books. But again, guys, if you're practicing with your books, that's going to get in your way, okay? So I recommend looking through each and every single page just so you can familiarize yourself with the layout of these books. And being comfortable with these books is really key to going fast with these books, because you're going to know exactly where to go. You're going to know right where you can find that answer, rather than sitting there kind of like a fish out of water trying to look for all the shortcuts and be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I know if I look for this word or that word. People talk about the process of elimination, right? And yes, there is process of elimination that you can use in order to select the best answer. But that's only going to take you so far. That's not going to get you through the whole exam, guys. You have to know what you're doing. And so taking the time beforehand, before you take your exam, to run through drills and see how many you can code in an hour, through either the practice books that you have. I recommend the CPC study guide, even if you're sitting for an AHIMA exam, because that CPC study guide still covers the outpatient CPT manual. And we all of us coders use the same CPT manual. So there is nothing in that test book, the CPC study guide, that would be foreign to somebody who's going to be sitting for an AHIMA certification exam. So I recommend that for study practice. I don't recommend the AHIMA study guides for their exams, because I just don't like the way that they are set up, and the format of the exam prep guides is just, I don't care for it. Okay, and as much as I've been out there, as much as I've like taken these exams myself, what I practiced with was the CPC study guide, and what I practiced with was the AHA, the American Hospital Association, ICD-10-CM and ICD-10-PCS coding handbook. I used that to study with. So that is what I used for drills for myself. And I've also opened up each and every single page of the books just so that I can make sure that I'm familiar with everything. And trust me, that helped me, because even being a veteran medical coder, and I took 2 exams last year. I took the CCSP and the CCS. And even being a veteran medical coder, there's still some things I have not done. For example, in the CCS exam, it covers inpatient coding. I have never been a hands-on inpatient coder. I know my way around, but the only way that I know my way around is because I've been studying with those books. And if you have the Optum 360 ICD-10 PCS manual, there is a quiz in the back in Appendix M like in Mary. And in the next appendix over, they do have the answers to all of those questions. So you can spend the time looking up those codes. It gets you into that mindset, and I swear by it, because I think having that practice really did help me to be more prepared for the CCS exam. And the CCS is a mastery of medical coding. It is a mastery of the inpatient and outpatient setting. It is the gold standard of medical coding credentials. So I knew I was in for a challenge when I sat for this exam. And even being a veteran medical coder, you know, I still knew that I had to study. There are things, again, that I did not know, being for the inpatient side. So I had to make sure that I studied enough so that I had enough knowledge. Did I worry? Yes, I did. But I also made sure that I was reading. And the more I read, the faster I was able to get at reading. And a lot of times people don't know this. They don't know that, you know, medical coding is reading. It is 90% of what we do in a day is read. And you will become faster at reading. It does help if you are a fast reader before you take your certification exam, because you have to be able to get through a lot of information quickly. You have roughly 2 minutes per question. Now, that is very quick when you think about it, okay? So it's a lot that you have to do, but not every single question is going to take you 2 minutes to answer, okay? There's going to be some questions that you're going to be able to recognize right away, depending on how hard you studied or where you got your training, okay? Some places are better trained than others, and there's very few places that are really good. And don't ask me where, because I don't know. I do know that some people, they just go to different programs, or they study on their own. And, you know, when you study on your own, it is a lot on your shoulders, but it is much like the setup for a lot of these places, because if you talk to any of these students that are out there, they will tell you they're feeling like they're learning on their own too. You know, like they're learning on their own. And that's not unheard of in this industry. We are independent learners, all of us. And while we do need help to learn things, it's not always available to us. So that's why we have to either make the decision to be strong in independently learning, or, you know, there's people that just don't make it in this industry because of that. You know, if you are stuck, if you need a tutor to help you, to make you go over things that are, to help you to go over, not make you go over, but to help you go over things that are troubling you, reach out, find a mentor, find a tutor. There's a ton of tutors on LinkedIn. I'm a tutor myself. My rates are in the description box below. So that way maybe that's what you need, is somebody to sit down and explain something to you. If it's really like, oh, I don't get this, rather than trying to spin your wheels and get frustrated about it, reach out and find help. You know, LinkedIn is a great place for networking. You do have to be careful about the things that you listen to, because there are negative people out there. So make sure that you are sticking with the positive. Make sure that your attitude is in the right place, especially when you are getting ready to sit for these certification exams. Now, with AHIMA exams, you cannot skip these questions, so you have to answer them as they come up to you. Now, I didn't know that they had stopped this, that they had let you flag before. But when I took my first CCSP, and well, the first exam I took of the year, which was the CCSP back in March, they immediately told us that, you know, there was no flagging. But apparently that had been going on for a few months. And so just if you're taking an AHIMA exam, just know that once that question pops up on the screen, they're expecting you to answer before you can move on. So don't get hung up, all right? Watch the clock. The clock is going to start, you know, being there, and this clock's going to count down the second you start that exam. So make sure that you're getting through at a good pace. Know where you want to be at a certain time, all right, when you're taking these exams. Because if you can say, well, if I can get to this next section by this time, that way you can keep your eye on the clock and you can keep going, all right? But whether you're sitting for AHIMA or AAPC, just keep in mind that, like, getting hung up on one question and in the grand scheme of things is not a good thing, right? You want to make sure that you're spending just the amount of time that you need. But if you can't come to a decision, then you need to use process of elimination, select the best answer that you can, and move on. If you absolutely do not understand this particular subject, maybe it's cardio or something, do the best you can to use process of elimination and move on, all right? So whatever you have to do, get through the exam. Do not throw away the entire exam based on maybe a couple of questions that you got hung up on. Whatever your first thought is, that's going to be your answer. Because the second you start getting on the hamster wheel, right, and you start going over and you're thinking, oh, this and oh, that, by the time you know it, that clock is going. It's not worth it to throw away the whole exam for one question or two questions or maybe three questions. You don't have to get all of the questions correct. You just have to get enough to pass, all right? So go in there, relax, make sure that you are fully rested before you take your certification exam. That's a problem. You know, sometimes people will get themselves so worked up, they won't sleep the night before, they won't eat something in the morning before they go for their exam, and they're going to be hungry, and you know, it's just hard to think when your stomach is growling and you're trying to focus on this exam and you're exhausted. It's not worth it, guys. Make sure that you've stopped studying the appropriate time beforehand, rest a couple, 2-3 days, and then go in, refresh so you can take your exam. Go through each and every single line that as fast as you can, okay? And again, if you've been reading the coding guidelines or if you've been doing practice drills, this should not be an issue for you, okay? So make sure that you're doing those things so that you can get through the exam efficiently. Don't look for shortcuts, guys. Don't. Because if you're looking for those shortcuts, it's not going to serve you. It may help you temporarily, but it's not going to serve you well in the long run. Because again, when you pass these certification exams, this says you have a proficiency in medical coding. Do you barely want to pass these exams and think, oh, I'm proficient, but not really because I just kind of skated around and did the shortcuts? Do you really want to do that to yourself, guys? No. So if you take the time to practice, do the drills beforehand, you're not going to sit here and try to look for a list of words that are the commonly used words or the words that the key words. You're not going to look for those because you're going to have so much practice. You are going to have had so much practice that that's not going to matter because you're just going to be able to get through it, you know, efficiently, because that's what a well-trained person will do. Okay, guys, that's just my advice anyway. But I want you guys to be successful. So, you know, make sure that you are study. Don't look for the shortcuts, guys. Study. Do the heavy lifting. Read the coding guidelines or record yourself and listen to them in like 15-minute blocks. So that way you don't get burnt out listening to them, but you can listen to them in short little bursts. So that it will help, because then you'll know. And there's a lot of things in those guidelines that are going to help guide you to know what the answers are when you're looking at these multiple choice questions. All right. So that's just my advice anyway. But make sure that you look at everything carefully. Start looking for those details and start looking at, you know, how you're studying. And if you need to get on those practice drills, get onto those practice drills. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be on you to be prepared when you go to take that certification exam. These exams are expensive, and you don't want to have to keep taking them over and over again when you can do what you can to make it easier for yourself. So start doing drills and start making sure that you know, okay, this is what's tripping me up, and really focus there. At least that's just my advice anyway. So thank you guys for joining me. If you are on your way to take your exam, best wishes to you. I look forward to hearing from you so that I can announce to everybody, hey, we got a new coder. All right, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.